One thing I'm promising to do this year is to try to understand where other people are coming from, even things that I declared to be stupid. Which brings us to Mike Trout.
You are Locked On MLB, your daily MLB podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, baseball fans, and welcome to Locked On MLB, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. This is the daily podcast. We talk about all of Major League Baseball. I am your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully. Follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter or whatever it's called now, and on Instagram. I'm your pal Sully. You're best just leaving comments right here on the YouTubes. I see them. I respond to them. I'm here. I'm there. And sometimes I'm everywhere. From the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting. Right now, new customers could bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets. Say that 3 times fast. If you win your first bet, visit FanDuel.com to get started. All right, what do I mean by that thing at the top? It's been a divisive decade. It's been a divisive last 10 years. And there's a lot of bad feeling and bad blood, and no matter where you stand on anything, you can't say anything without you making somebody angry. I enjoy pizza. Somebody was offended by that. I think we should treat people nicely. Someone's going to say I'm woke. You can't win either way, and there's anger, there's vitriol and everything. And baseball is supposed to be a place where people, no matter what your political allegiance is, where I know I've got conservatives and liberals who listen to me, no matter what your religion is, no matter what your sexual orientation or sexual identity, or your thoughts on guns, or your thoughts on this, or your thoughts on that, you're all welcome here, because we get together to talk about the thing that we love, which is baseball, which is an all-inclusive love that we all have, and we have productive hate here. We can hate things here and it be not really consequential. You can hate the Yankees, you can hate the Dodgers, you can hate the Red Sox, you can hate the Astros. I think those are the teams that everyone hates. And you can find that vitriol and have it go towards that instead of this group of people or that group of people. You see, that's healthy hate. However, I do want to temper some of my language a little bit, or not, if not my language, it's some of my attitudes. I was talking to my sons about something that had nothing to do with baseball, and we're talking about a point of view that some people have on a certain topic. I'm not going to get into it because it's opening, that's a delivery for Mr. Pandora, delivery for Mr. Pandora. I don't want to open up that box. So we were talking about how it's something that my sons and I agree on, and there's a bunch of people who completely disagree with us. And I was talking to my sons about it, saying, look, I think they're 100% wrong. I think they're fractally wrong. But let's try to understand how they came to that conclusion. And maybe, just maybe, that is a way to make these next bunch of years not so much about anger and vitriol, but at least about, tell me where you're coming from. I'm not going to agree with you, but just I don't even know where you're coming from. And I found myself, which brings us back to Locked On MLB, and specifically Mike Trout, because the other week, before my town caught on fire, I read a bunch of viewer messages and YouTube comments that piled up over those couple of weeks that I took off during Christmas time. And there was one that I declared to be stupid. And I wasn't wrong. And it was this take that I don't even want to hear this, knock it off. I'm going to review this take. This is as bad a baseball take as you're going to have. This is from channel, and by the way, I have read this before, but it's his follow-up. I'm sorry, I assumed it was a dude. I'm probably not wrong. At channel underscore 35 millimeter, Trout doesn't want to win. If it means he'd have to play a full season, he's perfectly fine collecting his check and putting up empty stats, evidenced by him re-signing with the Angels. And I called that the stupidest take I've ever seen. And I totally dismissed it. I thought it was just an angry, bitter fan saying sort of dumb things in a comment section. And I ridiculed it because it deserved ridicule. I said it was ridiculous. I thought it was silly and stupid. The law firm of ridiculous, silly, and stupid backed it up. And I just dismissed it at that. Okay, guy said something dumb. I was going to poke fun at him. As I said, constructive hate. However, channel underscore 35 millimeter followed up. And while I do not think this take has raised his argument from stupid to not stupid, there was something about it that I figured we need to address. Now listen to this. I mean, this is he posted this on the YouTubes because I dismissed this one, but then it stuck in my head. It stuck in my head like a raspberry seed in my wisdom teeth. 20 years from now, nobody will remember who he is. People don't care about made-up nerd stats. They care about winning. Okay. 20 years from now, he'll be a first-ballot Hall of Famer, number retired by the Angels and declared the best player of his generation. Fine. But let's take a look at what he's saying there. And maybe, I'm not saying I will agree with him, but I will say that I want to understand where he's coming from. And that post, while no less dumb, I saw a couple of little things to latch onto, to try to understand the mindset, trying to understand the point of view. And maybe this is a lesson we can all take. Maybe because there's whatever you disagree with in life, we have to find, to not necessarily agree with that person, but to at least understand where they're coming from. Instead of just saying, you're evil, you're dumb, you're stupid, you're un-American, you hate people, you hate life, blah, 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 blah. No. Figure out where they're coming from. And then maybe you could have a conversation and try to make things work. And that's what I intend to do today with someone who is saying that Mike Trout doesn't want to win, that he is fine just picking up empty stats. Empty stats. That one caught me off guard. And made up nerd stats. Now I understand what's happening here. Not saying I agree with it. But when we come back, I want to break it down. Because what's happening is the folly of the first impression. It is how you're introduced to someone can completely warp that person's value, that person's abilities, and that person's place in the world in so many ways. And Mike Trout's introduction to so many people in baseball, while he was brilliant right out of the gate, rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. And it turns out, folks, it had nothing to do with the type of player he was or anything like that. So when we come back, we're going to break it down because I think it's worth talking about. Hey, do you know what Mike Trout has? He has a lot of money. He has more money than you and I will ever see in our lifetime. But I bet even Mike Trout wants to keep track of his money, which is why I'm guessing he uses Rocket Money. I bet Mike Trout has many subscriptions that he forgot that he was even paying for. That happens to Mike Trout. He says, oh my God, I'm still paying for all these streaming services and these 3 gym memberships. Well, Mike Trout, let me tell you something. You should use Rocket Money. Rocket Money makes it so easy for Mike Trout to track them all down. It's like having a personal assistant for Mike Trout's finances and for yours too. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps people like Mike Trout and you cancel unwanted subscriptions, monitors their spending and helps lower their bills so they can win and get savings and brings everything together in one place. Subscriptions, spending habits, checks from the Angels, and even the goals you want to hit this year. Rocket Money has over 5 million users who have saved a total of 500 million in canceled subscription. That's almost enough money to sign Mike Trout, saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's premium features. So, cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals like Mike Trout does with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. rocketmoney.com/lockedon. To the best of my knowledge, Mike Trout does not endorse Rocket Money. Okay, let's think about what happened when Mike Trout made his entrance to Major League Baseball. He was the Rookie of the Year in 2012 and played for an Angels team that a lot of people thought was going to be a contender, and they did contend for a big chunk of the year. And what a rookie year he had. He played 139 games. He was alongside new Angel Albert Pujols, who wasn't great, but all the attention went on Trout. He led the league in runs scored. He hit 30 home runs. He led the league in stolen bases. You like batting average? He had a high batting average, 326. You like on-base percentage? His on-base percentage was 399. He had a good slugging percentage and was a Silver Slugger and won the Rookie of the Year. And I don't think anyone would have a problem with that, as he also played super hard and seemed like a good enough guy. So why did he rub so many people the wrong way? Well, because that was the year Miguel Cabrera won the Triple Crown. Miguel Cabrera won the Triple Crown with 44 home runs, 139 runs batted in. He batted .330, which led the league. He had the highest slugging percentage. And for people who liked OPS, he batted .999. And not only that, but he took the Detroit Tigers, who were behind the White Sox for a giant chunk of that season, and led them to a division title, ultimately leading them past a good A's team, an upstart A's team, past the Yankees, and all the way to the World Series, where they were thumped by the Giants, but that's not the point. Miguel Cabrera had the type of season that people have been waiting for a long time for. For the first time since Carl Yastrzemski in 1967, the first time in my lifetime, there was a Triple Crown winner. And for so many people, it was an amazing event. We didn't think we would ever see another Triple Crown winner. And here we are. We saw one. And the idea was, my God, he won the Triple Crown, and chances are he's going to be a unanimous MVP. And then came the advanced analytics people. And the advanced analytics people said, hold the sausages for a second. Mike Trout leads the league in WAR, 10.05. And that was more than 3 games wins above replacement over Miguel Cabrera. In fact, when it came down to WAR, Miguel Cabrera winning the Triple Crown had the 5th highest WAR in the American League. With WAR, it was argued that Robinson Cano, Justin Verlander, and Adrian Beltre all had better years than Miguel Cabrera. And Mike Trout was far and away the most valuable player in the eyes of the people who were analyzing the advanced analytics. And that rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. That rubbed the people saying, what are you talking? This guy won the Triple Crown. And I admit, I'm not someone who adheres to WAR. I don't know how WAR is calculated. It's not the end-all, be-all for me. I've always said I treat WAR like I treat Wikipedia, which is, it's a good starting off point, but I want to break down the numbers and break down the value of a player more than just adhering to a number that I have no clue how it's calculated. To this day, I've had people show me, and it's like it's watching the film A Beautiful Mind. And for a lot of people who love the game of baseball and watching it unfold, so like, you're telling me that the player who won the Triple Crown, something we haven't seen since Yastrzemski, is the 5th most valuable player in the American League. Not even the most valuable player on his own team with Justin Verlander. And for a lot of people, that was a first impression that sucked. For a lot of people, Mike Trout became the poster child for the geeks, the people with calculators invading the game, taking over the game. He became the poster child of someone saying, actually, the person who won the Triple Crown wasn't as good as you think he is. The best player is this player who, because of rattling off a bunch of stats that don't make any sense. And it kind of became this line in the sand for the analytics crew, who were always right. Just ask the analytics crew. And the old-timer crew, who don't want to hear anything new. They just want to talk about grit in their gut. And the fact that Mike Trout didn't make the playoffs and Miguel Cabrera got all the way to the World Series didn't help matters in terms of Trout. That was the introduction to Trout for many people. And also for a lot of people who are on the East Coast, didn't get to see Trout play. They would only see him in highlights. And so when they say, oh, OPS plus, he led the league in OPS plus. He led the league in ROBA and RBAT plus. What the hell are you talking about? Now, for the first 5 full seasons of Mike Trout's career, he led the league in WAR. And the first 2 full seasons of his career, he lost the MVP to Miguel Cabrera. As Cabrera's team made the playoffs and he put up great numbers, and Mike Trout put up numbers you don't understand. Now, of course, some of the numbers he had in his second year led the league in runs, led the league in walks, hit 27 home runs, drove in 97, batted .323. I mean, these are good numbers, right? Right? He finally won an MVP in 2014, the lone year he saw the playoffs. But in the playoffs, he didn't come up big. He had a chance as the Angels lost 2 extra inning games at home. And certainly in one of them, he had a chance where a home run would have won the game. He had a home run in game 3, but the Angels were out of it fast. Boom. So were the Tigers for that matter, but it doesn't matter. Miguel Cabrera played in multiple World Series. Miguel Cabrera has a World Series ring. And Mike Trout became the poster boy for the type of stats that are ruining the game. I'm putting that in quotes, even though part of me thinks the analytics have had some negative effect. If you don't believe me, why was Blake Snell taken out of the freaking World Series? Okay, part of that was all financial, but that's reliance on some stats where you say, oh, this team's smarter than everyone else, and say, yeah, but they haven't won the World Series. They haven't done this or that. And Mike Trout's first impression was that of someone who put up stats that I don't understand, and people are telling me it's more important than the Triple Crown and going to the World Series. Meanwhile, if you actually saw living on the West Coast, I saw Mike Trout play. He's everything you want in a player: stealing bases, playing the game hard, running into walls, hitting clutch home runs, hitting big doubles, keeping those rallies going. You know, between 2012 and 2019, he put up numbers that we'd never seen before. Now, sadly, since the COVID year, he's only played 100 games once in 2022, his last MVP caliber season. Since then, he has been injured. Of course, he's signed with the Angels, which this guy mistakenly, in my humble opinion, mistakenly put against him. I mean, aren't we supposed to love it when a player is loyal to the organization? But it's that first impression that he made on so many people where he, for no fault of his own, became the poster child for the revenge of the nerds in baseball. And that stinks. And of course, if the Angels had won in 2014 and beaten the Royals, then and Mike Trout got a ring relatively early in his career, he would have been able to say, and look at this, I'm a champion. Getting that championship out of the way early dispels a lot of negative thoughts. Certainly did with Jeter, certainly did with Cal Ripken. Hell, it certainly did with Miguel Cabrera. helping the Florida Marlins win an incredibly unlikely World Series title. But now Mike Trout looks like not only is he never going to win a World Series, he may never be on a winning team, as the Angels are the team with the longest playoff drought and the longest losing season drought, which brings up his point, empty stats. People care about winning. I think while I vehemently disagree with this guy's take, and anyone who's watched Mike Trout play knows that if you're a big fan of baseball, no matter what, whether you're into the new stats or old stats, he has it covered. All of it covered beautifully. But the fact of the matter is they didn't win, and it wasn't because of him, but it's that early first impression that made people think, and made this guy think, that he represents something bad in baseball. And that's where I think it's coming from. And those first impressions can go the other way too, where people's values and memories of a player is entirely based upon how they broke into the scene. Hey, let's hear from our friends over at FanDuel. You know, from the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting. Right now, new customers can bet $5 to get $300 in bonus bets if you win your first bet. That's $300 to keep the action going. The FanDuel app is easy to navigate with a variety of bets that keeps every game exciting. And we got some exciting games. The Washington Commanders, the new named Commanders, are one win away from the Super Bowl. And the Philadelphia Eagles are saying, hey, not so fast. Meanwhile, the Buffalo Bills are thinking we could end all misery in Buffalo. And the Chiefs are saying, yeah, not so fast. Now, if you're betting on the Bills, if you're betting on the Chiefs, if you're betting on the Commanders, if you're betting on the Eagles, or you're just looking to add some extra excitement to the playoffs, FanDuel has you covered. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today and get started with $300 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Make the playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the National Football League. First impressions can elevate someone's status. In that World Series that Miguel Cabrera played and lost to the San Francisco Giants, two of the heroes on that team were the recipients of great love from the fan base based upon their first impression. Now, Pablo Sandoval won the World Series MVP, and deservedly so, especially with the 3 home run performance in Game 1, the first 2 off of Justin Verlander. But he has never-ending love from San Francisco fans, even though if you looked at his stats during the regular season, he only had a couple of good, high-quality seasons. Most of the time, he was only okay. And people forget that he was actually benched in the 2010 World Series. He did play, but he wasn't a regular player. And he came in, he had the great World Series against Detroit. And he also had a great World Series against Kansas City 2 years later. But for Giants fans, he exploded on the scene in 2008 with a pudgy body and this infectious smile and this roly-poly personality. It looked like it was the Kung Fu Panda and everyone wearing the panda hats. And he was a fun slugger because he was coming just as the Bonds era ended. And Giants fans loved Barry Bonds, but Bonds wasn't cute and cuddly. Pablo Sandoval was. And he came up, he was hitting big home runs and was having fun. Bonds never really looked like he was having much fun. Towards the end of his career, he kind of did, but there was always a bit of a big chip on his shoulder during the whole time. And with Sandoval, it was just fun. He looked fun. It looked like he was having fun, and he was having a blast. And then when he came up big in the World Series, there was so much love because fans wanted him to come through big time because of how he started off. If you look at his career, there weren't a lot of really great Pablo Sandoval seasons. But because of how it started and because of what he meant to Giant fans, they gave him the type of pass that Mike Trout could only dream of. Tim Lincecum was also on that team. Tim Lincecum was the star of the post-Bonds Giants year of 2008, winning the Cy Young Award in 2008 and 2009, and being the superstar pitcher when they finally won the World Series in 2010. All those great Giant players, Bonds, McCovey, Cepeda, Marichal, Gaylord Perry, Will Clark, Rick Russell, Jack Clark, all these players who have, Chili Davis, all these players who have wonderful careers in San Francisco. It wasn't until Lincecum pitched them to the championship, and there you go. And he made such a huge splash in those first bunch of years, and his career nosedived after that. And yet, to this day, he's a rock star, an absolute rock star. And that year, 2012, he was in the bullpen because he had a rough year as a starting pitcher, and he got clobbered in his one postseason start against Cincinnati. And Bochy used him out of the bullpen where he was effective as a middle reliever. But fans loved him because they remembered Timmy, the freak, the franchise, the way he came out, that first impression, that he was a big game pitcher. And he was the one who led them to the title. Madison Bumgarner, similar thing, the way he emerged right out of the gate as a big game pitcher. He only had a handful of Cy Young caliber seasons in his career, but he's remembered as the big winner, while Clayton Kershaw is the big loser because he lost all those games early on in the postseason. Kershaw's actually won a bunch of postseason games over the years, but I digress. I keep thinking about Alex Rodriguez in this Mike Trout first impression. Rodriguez, obviously was a huge star with the Mariners, but people didn't like the fact that he signed for a big chunk of money with Texas because he was on a team that was a contender, and he obviously went for the money. I would go for the money. So would you. And he got a lot of money to go to Texas. But he was miserable there, and he wound up going to the Yankees. So there's a bit of he's a phony. And lest we forget, he had a very good year with the Yankees his first year. And he basically won the first round himself in 2004 against the Twins. And he was putting up huge numbers against the Red Sox in the first 4 games. He would not have been the ALCS MVP. That would have been Hideki Matsui. But A-Rod was hitting the snot out of the ball in the first 2 series in 2004. And if, Mariano Rivera held on to the lead and they went on to the World Series, the Yankees probably would have clobbered the St. Louis Cardinals. A-Rod would have been a beloved Yankee. Absolutely would have been. He would have been a Reggie Jackson-like figure. Controversial, went for the big money, but when it came to the big game, he came up big, just like Reggie. And if Reggie came up small in the World Series in 77, he would have been a hated Yankee. But no, he was a beloved Yankee because of what he did. If that had happened with A-Rod, he would be a beloved Yankee. All PED stuff would have been forgiven. You don't believe me? Andy Pettitt has his number retired at Yankee Stadium. He would be remembered, rightfully so, as the greatest third baseman in Yankee history. There'd be days from boom, boom, boom. But when the Yankees collapsed, he collapsed. And slapping the ball, had a terrible final 3 games. And then had a terrible playoff in 05 and 06 and 07. He practically won the World Series for the Yankees in 2009 by himself. But nobody seemed to remember that because of the folly of the first impression. The impression that he gave, that he was all about the money and came up small in the big games. And A-Rod never recovered from that in so many ways. His number's not retired. They retired everyone's number. I think they retired freaking Alvaro Espinosa's number there. They didn't retire the greatest third baseman in Yankee history. It's because of the folly of the first impression. And for this listener, the first impression that Mike Trout represents new stats that are empty, hollow, and took away from the attention of a Triple Crown winner, I'm not saying I agree with him. I'm not saying I agree with the take. I'm not even saying that I should have removed the FanDuel banner that's here. Boy, I have been swinging and missing with the ads today. But I am saying that I'm beginning to understand the point of view. I'm beginning to understand it. Not agree with it, but understand it. And that's the first step a lot of us have to take as this year is going to unfold. Not saying agree with everybody, but try to understand. And understand that maybe someone's take isn't because they're stupid and they're dumb and they hate this and they hate that. Maybe they're coming at it from a different perspective. And let's try to understand it first and then address it. And this has been my plea to you all of how to move forward in this 2025, which, as a resident of Los Angeles County, I can tell you already sucks. So follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter or whatever it's called now, and on Instagram. I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball on Blue Sky, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. Trying to find the mid-ground on things and finding some, resolution for those people I disagree with through Mike Trout. This has been Locked On MLB. I am your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully.